Hi everyone, this is Evelina. I am a life coach for immigrants, and today I have for you a subject that we haven't really talked about yet. We're going to talk about money.
That's right.
Financial education. I have with me Tess. Tess is a certified financial planner, and we're just going to have a conversation. She's an immigrant and she's going to share with us a lot of her wisdom. I'm going to ask her a lot of very specific questions to help you learn things that you need to know about money, and I'm gonna be learning, and we're just gonna have a nice friendly conversation. So Tess, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me for this.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Yeah, so am I. Wonderful. And for all of you who are listening to us, listen, you guys, we have recorded this. So you can see us talking to one another on YouTube if you want to. I will put a link in the description of the show so you can see it. But hey, if you want to see what we look like, just come on over to YouTube and watch us. Okay, so Tess, let's talk about you first. Tell me, where did you immigrate from? When did you come to the US? Tell us all the things.
Sure. So I am originally from Bulgaria, which is in Eastern Europe. And, I always tell people this, but I grew up with money not being a taboo at all, like it is in America. And maybe it's similar for you, but at least in Bulgaria, people talked about money very openly. It was just a very normal topic of conversation.
Oh.
It was usually the lack of money that was the topic of conversation, right? Because we grew up not having a lot of it. But I think, I think that normalized the conversation for me. So after that, we lived in Africa for 5 years. After communism ended, they opened our borders, and my dad was a doctor. So he went to Africa in search of a better future for us, right? Like a lot of immigrants.
Where were you at in Africa?
Yeah, so I lived in Botswana, which is in the southern part of Africa. Wow. I graduated high school there and learned English there because English is my second language. Mm-hmm. So anyways, so after living in Africa, I came to the US for college. I was a 16-year-old. I was the youngest kid in all my classes. And I lived in North Dakota. Have you been to North Dakota?
No, but I've heard things.
Yes. Well, the one thing I will say is that there was no diversity in the little town I lived in. So I was one of very few international students. Nobody looked like me. Nobody sounded like me. My accent was definitely a lot thicker at that point. Mm-hmm. And it was a very interesting experience because, I just...
What was that like? Tell me a little bit more. Like, what did you, because obviously, right, people are not used to your accent. They're not used to, what did they treat you like? What was hard about it?
I think it's hard for anybody who's an immigrant because you sound different, you look different, and people don't necessarily accept you. I mean, as a 16-year-old, I was the youngest. I was different. It was hard to make friends. My only friends were international students. My best friend was Canadian. I didn't have any American friends really for at least the first 1 year. I think people just didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to approach me, probably didn't understand me because my accent was very different from everybody else. And it was hard. I mean, it was just hard to feel like I belong. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I ended up moving to Chicago. That's a whole nother story as to why. But I was very happy with that transition because if you've been to Chicago, there's so much diversity. And so there was definitely more of a sense of, I actually fit in here. I am not the only person who looks like this and talks like this. And that's where I graduated with my finance degree. And then as I actually started to learn finance, I realized that I really enjoy finance because, it's all about how do you make your money work for you? How do you save and invest your money? And the biggest concept for me that was kind of life-changing coming from not having any money, right? Not being born into a wealthy family, was the concept that you could save and invest small amounts. And if you had enough time for that money to grow and compound, you could become wealthy. That was life-changing for me, because I was like, wow, you can come here as an immigrant, and if you know how the system works, you can actually be wealthy one day, and you can set your kids up, to be financially well. And provide them with a better future. I think, that's what we all want, right? A better future than what we started with.
Absolutely. That sounds pretty amazing. Just that piece, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, so many of us being immigrants, we come from different financial systems, right? Like you were talking about growing up in Bulgaria, not having money, talking about money that was okay to talk about. But at the same time, one of the things that comes to my mind is that we did not have credit cards, right? So unless you had cash, you did not buy something that you didn't have. So like that whole concept of getting a credit and all of that I was completely unfamiliar with, and I was very grateful that I didn't have that mentality starting my life, right? Why don't we talk about this? What was it like for you growing up? It was different, I'm sure, the financial system in Bulgaria, right?
Totally. So very similar to what you just mentioned. We grew up with no credit cards, no loans. Really, you, as an average person, you either had the cash to buy something or you didn't. So, I think in a sense, I'm very grateful for growing up in that kind of society, because I learned the lesson that if you can't afford it, you probably shouldn't buy it.
That's right.
Right. And I think a lot of us immigrants have that mentality, which is why we're much better savers and we're much more frugal, because we come from hard times and difficult environments, right? And I think, coming here, it's a matter of kind of changing our mindset and understanding that, well, things work differently here. And, you can get a mortgage, for example, to purchase your house. You don't have to have the cash for your house, right? And so there's certain things that we need to know, like what's good debt versus bad debt, right?
Let's talk about it. What's good debt versus bad debt? Tell me.
Totally. Well, so the first thing you mentioned, credit cards, bad debt. Credit card companies charge something in the realm of 29% APR interest, right? So what that means is if we charge something on our credit card today, like let's say I buy the newest iPhone today for $2,000 and I don't have the money for it, so I can't pay it off. It compounds pretty quickly to where in about 3 years, it's double on your credit card statement. That phone
you're gonna have to pay $4,000.
Exactly.
But what you bought, the value of it, the moment you buy it, depreciates at least by half.
Right.
And you bought it.
Exactly. And so people don't recognize that when they put things on their credit cards, but with compound interest, that debt quickly snowballs to where you're going to end up paying way more than what you charged on that credit card in the first place. So you have to use credit cards responsibly, to where you put it on your credit card and then you pay it off in full.
Yeah, someone told me, and just to clarify this for me, someone told me a long time ago, not super long, but a few years ago, and I won't ever forget this, because she got herself into heavy financial trouble. But she said, nobody told me that if I just pay the minimum on my card, I will never pay it off.
Yes, you'll never pay it off. Exactly. Because you're barely touching the principal. So that principal just continues to grow at such a high compound rate.
Right. And what do they, when you have an opportunity to pay your card off in your bank, like when you're looking at your account, what is the first suggested amount? The minimum payment. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I think we have to remember, right? The credit card companies are out to make money. So they're not out there looking for your best interest or my best interest. They are in the for-profit business of making money.
Right. So they want you to keep on paying them minimum.
Yes.
So they can keep on charging you.
Exactly. I think you asked what is bad debt and what is good debt.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think bad debt would be credit cards. And then that's the worst really of it. And good debt is things like your mortgage, your student loans, because those are investments, right?
Yes.
People love to hate on student loans, but hey, guess what? If you got an education that can help you get a better paying job, that is an investment.
Yes.
Right?
It's important what kind of education you're getting.
Very, very true.
What do you think that's the most important thing about building wealth in the US?
Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing is, first off, to get some basic financial education, right? Because you have to have the education in order to feel comfortable taking that next step. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't need to have a finance degree.
Right.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get into the analysis paralysis and, oh, I need to know more. No, you just need to know the basics, right? And then really the most important thing with building wealth is you have to start young, because time is your best friend when it comes to investing and compound interest working for you. Mm-hmm. The sooner you get started, the more time that money has to grow and compound. And so lucky for me, I was a finance degree, and that was the idea that they constantly threw at us. So because I was constantly exposed to that, as soon as I graduated with my first job, I started investing because it was just the natural thing to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that is the biggest thing, is we need to start the sooner the better.
And what do you think that holds us as immigrants? What holds us back? Mm-hmm.
You know, I think what holds us back, for some of us, I think it's our status, our immigrant status, because I don't know about you, but I came as an international student, and it took me a long time to get my green card. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was one thing in the back of my mind. I always worried about, would I actually be able to stay here? And should I really be investing heavily into all these accounts, knowing that, you know, I might get kicked out, I might not get a job to sponsor me, and I might not be able to stay, right? You always have that fear in the back of your head that you might not be here forever. I think once you get that status, it gives you this stability and peace of mind. You're like, okay, I'm here to stay. So now, you know, now let's focus on really building my future here.
Well, so what do you think are the advantages though, right? Like for us immigrants, mm-hmm. We already talked about the mindset, that's some of it. What else? What are the advantages?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the mindset, frankly, because, you know, so many people, there was just a report that came out, and it said that a third of people in America making over 250,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, if you're making over 250,000, you should not be living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. Like they're spending way more than they should.
Exactly. So I think mindset cannot be underestimated, because it is the foundation to really build wealth, because you have to be living you actually have to be living under your means. So if you're making 250, you have to be spending less than 250 in order to really be saving and investing a portion of that money to build wealth.
Yes.
So and that is
sense. Yeah. So what do you think? Is it just trying to keep up with the Joneses, that whole mentality? That's what's standing in our way?
Yeah, that is a big issue that I see here. And you can't underestimate the marketing companies, right? Because they say we're bombarded with over 5,000 ads a day. So you're constantly seeing these messages that you need to buy X product in order to feel good about yourself, or, you know, to be successful, you need this house with this car and this watch. So it kind of takes a toll because you're constantly keeping up. And I think social media as well, right? That has an impact. And, watching the Kardashians, I think, watching people living that kind of a lifestyle, people that are in the 1% or the 5% of the richest people in the world, you can't compare yourself to those people.
Right? That's what our brains want to do. They want to keep on comparing, and then we think there's something wrong with us, and like we should have it. Like we should look like Kim Kardashian. We should be able to do all those things, and if we cannot live her lifestyle, then there's something completely wrong with us, which is such a lie.
Exactly. So I think, we have the mindset right. So let's use that to our advantage, right? And it's just a matter of getting that basic education to understand, like, how does the financial system work? How can you invest? What type of account makes the most sense? If you work for a company, hopefully you have a retirement account through work. So that's an easy way to get started. And then guess what? You can actually talk to a financial planner like myself. I think a lot of immigrants don't know that financial advisors exist. So if you don't know that there is help around the corner, you don't know to seek it.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's same for you, right? I mean, do people actually know?
Yeah. There are, I think that it's an industry that's starting to grow, but overall, my kind of a job it's one of those things where people are like, okay, I can either go to therapy, and if I go to therapy, then I'm being very heavily judged by my family and friends, and there's something wrong with me.
Yes.
And so often people don't realize that, well, there's also coaching. Like, you don't have to go to therapy. I can help you with coaching, and you can get yourself in a way better place mentally by having a coach. And no, we're not, because majority of the people don't need therapists, frankly, right? We don't have super heavy trauma that we need to deal with. Some of us do, but some of us don't. Majority of us don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it truly is. It's one of those things where when I talk to people and I meet people, I oftentimes ask them, do you understand the difference between therapists and a coach?
Yeah.
I will ask them straight up, because so many people have no idea what a coach is.
Yeah, I mean, that is actually super helpful, just what you said, with the therapist dealing with trauma
and overall past. Like, that is the main difference. Therapy will focus on the past and what has happened. Like, so if you have something in your life today that is affecting how you feel every day, but it's in your past, right? Let's say that your spouse died in an accident, or you have PTSD from being in Iraq or something like that, right? Like, when there is this heavy influence of your past on your current state, that's when you need therapy. But if your life is okay at the base, everything is good, but you kind of feel like, you have incredible potential, but you somehow, some way cannot get yourself there.
Yeah.
That's where I help, right? That's where you come to see me.
That's amazing.
It is helpful.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I have a coach too, and not just one. Makes a big difference.
I think we can all use a coach, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I think every single human being should have a coach, just because of the way how our brains are. Why don't we talk about investing?
Yeah.
You already told me, right, that starting early is very important. Is there anything else that we need to know about investing, just for the sake of this conversation? And
yeah. So one of the things that I like to teach people, one of the basics really when it comes to investing, is the rule of 72.
Okay.
Have you heard about it?
No.
Okay, love it. So the rule says that if you divide 72 by the rate of return that you're going to get on your investment, you get how many years it takes for your money to double.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right. So if you take 72 and you divide it by, let's take 7 as the rate of return that you can expect in the market long term, you get 10 years. So every 10 years, your money is doubling if you're investing.
Got it. That's why it's so important to start early.
Exactly. Because let's say you have 10,000 invested by the time you're 20. So by the time you're 30, it becomes 20,000, and then it becomes 40,000, and it becomes 80,000, and then it becomes 160,000, and you see how it just snowballs,
Got it.
right?
Does not sound that complicated.
No, it really isn't. It's just, I think the hardest thing, like anything, is starting, right?
Yeah.
It's-
So you are a financial advisor, obviously.
Mhm.
How long have you been doing this?
Yes, so I have been a financial advisor for 7 years.
Okay.
And before that, I was in corporate finance for 9 years. And I want to say the big difference is that there were just a lot more zeros when I was doing corporate finance, because I was helping corporations manage their millions.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love working with people way more. I love people more than numbers. So it's really fun to work with individuals and families one-on-one. Just like,
you're building relationship, right? And it's kind of like you're building relationship for life.
yes. So, I'm fortunate because most of my clients have been with me since the beginning. And I always say that planning is a process because life is always changing, right? So what makes sense for you today financially might be slightly different 5 years from now. Life is so unexpected, right? So it's not just about investing, it's about planning for worst case scenarios and best case scenarios. So when we do planning and when I work with clients, we look at everything from their budget to their employee benefits, to their saving and investments, to do you have life insurance in case something bad happens, right? Do you have disability insurance in case you get sick and you can't work for 2 years or 3 years or, more? So we want to make sure that we're planning for the best, but we're always protected for those worst case scenarios.
Right. I feel like it wouldn't be right not to talk about inflation.
Yeah, that's
right?
a big, yes.
Tell me, what is your thought on it?
So yes, things cost a heck of a lot more this year than they did, 2 years ago. And it's a real problem, right? And it's taking more money out of everyone's paycheck. So what can we control, right? Maybe you drive less. Maybe you talk to your employer if they're forcing you to be in the office to say, hey, listen, that's costing me X more. So can I work from home 3 days a week or whatever compromise they're willing to make? If you work for someone, if you work for yourself, of course, you're in charge, right? So you make those decisions. A lot of businesses, for example, are countering inflation by increasing their prices, right? It's part of life. And I tell people who work for a company to make sure that they're getting an inflation adjustment. Because if inflation is, the latest figure was around 9%, you should be getting a 9% increase in your pay to keep up with inflation.
Boom. Yes, you should.
You should.
You absolutely should.
Right? And if you don't, maybe start looking at new jobs, negotiate with your company, get some new skills, right? To where you can level up and go work somewhere else and make more money.
Yeah, we were talking the other day in a networking meeting about how today families are looking at multiple streams of income because of the situation we are in, and there's so much uncertainty with where the things are going. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yes, there's so much uncertainty today. I feel like there's always so much uncertainty. Right? Yeah, it is. It's true, right? Like, I really believe the world is 50-50. It's always 50-50. Always have good, always have bad. What is shifting is just what is on each side and like, how does that look, Right. Us growing up, where we grew up, yeah, our reality looked different than American kids, right? At the time, but there's so many amazing things about my childhood that I would never, ever, ever, ever exactly wants to get tons of Barbies for or a computer for. Like, I would so much rather have my childhood. Yes. Even though it was like I was not as financially, I don't know, I didn't have the best toys, I guess. Didn't matter, right?
Yes.
It did not matter, but were there struggles in Poland, like in Bulgaria? Yeah, we had struggles, and yet there were so many positives in that life as well.
And I think, you know, again, it comes back to mindset, right? And perception. I love the glass half full, the glass half empty. But I feel like that's, you know, that's life. You can view things as half empty or half full. There's always going to be bad things.
You know what? And by default, we are looking at things half empty because of our lower brain. We will always see things. The first thought about something will always be negative.
Yeah.
So unless we decide on what we want to think about it with our prefrontal cortex, the very first thought will always come from the lower brain and will always be negative. It will always be that way. We just have to observe ourselves enough where we do not believe ourselves. You know, so what is it like? Tell me a little bit about the struggles that you see for your people as you're dealing with adjusting budgets and their spending habits. What are some of the mental blocks that are coming up for your clients?
Yeah. So some of the mental blocks, unfortunately, a lot of people grow up with beliefs about money that are not serving them well.
Like what?
So for example, one of my best girlfriend from college, she was told that she's not good at math. She's not good with numbers. And in her family, her dad took care of all the financial stuff, right? So she grew up with a distinct belief that she's not good with money and she just needs to get married.
She's a female. She's not good at math.
Yeah.
Not gonna be good at this, period.
Period. So why bother, right? Because if you believe that, well, why bother? You know, my husband in the future, when I meet Prince Perfect, he's going to take care of me. And the sad reality, I have to say this because I unfortunately have worked with a lot of divorcees. And typically, you know, it's the female in that situation that suffers because you don't know anything about the finances when you're married, and then something happens and you get divorced. And then you're left to figure it out in this super stressful situation.
Yeah.
So I really want every female out there to be, you know, in the know when it comes to your finances, and know that you don't have to be a math genius to, you know, be good with your money.
No, it's just subtracting and adding, like it literally, right? That's what it comes down to.
Basic math, right?
Math. And we all know how to do that.
Yes, exactly. You got this.
Yeah. With my coaches, the school that I went to, the life coach school, there's quite a bit of training on money and the money mindset. So I have been trained in it as well. And I do work with some of my clients on money specifically because it does come up. For every single client I work with, the money comes up. And the whole judgment, the whole story about it. I shouldn't be charging this, right? If I'm working with on business coaching with someone, I should not be charging this. Is like a lot of money for something. Like they're not seeing the value of what they're selling. They have a hard time charging. They have a hard time seeing why they should be allowed to be making more than what they're making right now. And you know, there's another thing that I just remembered that is standing in our way, and that was a huge aha moment for me, was this realization that we have a specific amount of money in our accounts typically, right? Like we just have like we're used to having, let's say, $5,000 in our account, and that's our safety net. And then we start making more, but because that $5,000 is our safety net, if we, let's say that we have 7 or 10K in an account, by default, we will be spending it.
Interesting.
Because our lower brain, the part of us that is keeping us safe, takes that extra money as a threat. Right? Like the reality has changed. Now there is money. We got to get rid of it so we can be back at the 5K, which is a safety zone.
Comfort level.
Comfort level, yeah. So this is why when people make a lot of money or they win money in lottery or whatever, like they all of a sudden a lot of money comes in, inheritance or all those, you know, situations, why they spend it so fast.
Yeah.
So there is such a thing as owning tolerance. You have to teach yourself to own the money and
Mhm.
tell your brain 7,000 is okay to have in my account. It's okay to own it, and like own it for a month before you spend some, right? Own 10K for a month before you let it go. And that is part of getting richer, right? The more money we have, one of the things that we're talking about is investing, where when you're investing your money, you're not seeing it, right? There it is.
Yeah.
Investments. But what about that income that is coming as you keep on gaining more money or making more money, and then you have to build up towards the place where you can invest, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what you're working against is that lower brain telling you to spend it.
So how do you counteract that in your coaching?
In my coaching, well, we talk about, right? What are your thoughts about having 5,000? What are your thoughts about having 7? What are your thoughts about having 10? Right? And it comes up. It will be very, very clear. Oh, that's kind of too much. 10 is too much. It's not really too much, but it will come up. It will come up. And what I do is I ask a lot of deep questions to get to that level, because often this is deep, right? It's not going to be on the surface.
Right.
It's not very obvious, but it's enough that I'm persistent and I dig and dig and dig, and we'll uncover it and we'll see it very, very clearly. Why people spend money, or is this like this discomfort, right? Of owning it, wanting to get rid of it. And then on top of it, we have the programming that comes with the 5,000 ads every day.
Oh, yes.
Convincing us that if you buy this car, you will be successful, right? Like that whole idea of a brand new car sitting in the driveway for Christmas for a wife. Who gets to afford that? Like, and who manages their money like this, where you go and you spend $30,000 or $40,000 on a brand new car without telling your spouse?
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
It's good marketing though.
Well, it's this like, oh, for the male, right? The message is, oh, I am the provider. Exactly. I have all this money and I get to spend it on my wife like this. And the wife is standing there admiring her husband, kissing him like, oh, you're the best Prince Charming ever. I don't have to know anything about investing.
Right,
just have to know anything about money. You just provide for me. What a terrible story, really.
Yes,
so
really.
far from reality.
Agreed. But it's interesting. So you see some of the, very similar beliefs that I do, all the shame and the guilt, and I shouldn't spend this. And, especially, I see especially stay-at-home moms have a lot of guilt when it comes to money.
Because they're not making it, right? Because they feel very careful about spending.
Yes, absolutely. And that happened recently in a meeting. And, I asked the wife, because she's staying at home with the young kids. I said, what do you enjoy spending money on? Go do that. Go spend some money on yourself, because you deserve it. You're working hard. I think the hardest thing for stay-at-home moms is because they're not getting a paycheck, right? They feel like their work is worth less, but they've done studies, and actually stay-at-home moms, that economic value is approximately 180,000 a year when you add up all the things they do. So I think that's a bit, big misconception, unfortunately, in an area where women need to know, like, you're worth a lot. Absolutely. Whether you work at home or outside the home.
Yeah, obviously that's my job, right? That's what I work always, like that. He hits that block with every single client, like my worthiness, right? Even the ones who are very, very successful, not feel that it's okay to be spending money, to be celebrating yourself in some way. Like a massage, it's not okay.
Yeah. What? I mean, listen, I'm guilty as charged. I unfortunately have that block as well. And I noticed it in the last couple of months, and I was like, I need to work on this, because, I'm spending money on everybody I love, but I can't spend money on myself. It's very difficult.
Yeah, why not? Right? Like if I was coaching, it will be like, we will be like digging right into it.
Exactly.
Why not? What is it about that you're telling yourself about yourself and your worthiness, right?
Exactly.
Why is that not okay? And what if you were to die tomorrow? Would you be worthy then?
Exactly. Yeah,
Right?
it would be too late.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously there's all different kinds of advisors out there. Right? What should we pay attention to when we hire one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of immigrants, I see this a lot because I'm part of a lot of Facebook groups for Bulgarian communities, for example. We think that because we deposit our money into the bank, we should go see the financial advisor of the bank, right? Because we trust the bank, so we trust the financial advisor. But here's what I want you to know. The advisor at your bank is employed by the bank.
Right.
So guess whose interest they're ultimately serving?
Bank.
Exactly. Yeah. So the biggest thing for me is they have to be independent. So an independent financial advisor. So for example, I'm independent. I get paid by my clients. I'm working for my clients, not for a bank.
Gotcha.
The second biggest thing, and honestly, they're all just as important, is they have to be educated. And you know, when I came into this industry, I realized that a lot of my colleagues don't have a finance degree, and a lot of them don't have a credential. So make sure that you know their education and experience. And I always tell people to look for a certified financial planner because it's the gold standard in the industry. Yeah. Only 20% of advisors have a certified financial planner designation.
And that's what you are, obviously. You had a designation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you have to take all different kinds of tests. Like, how do you get certified?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a huge education requirement, right? You have to go through the education program. You have to pass a very difficult test. And then you have to also have the experience to hold yourself as a CFP professional. And then you also are held to a fiduciary standard, which is the third most important thing. Because, you know, as a fiduciary, you have a legal obligation to act in your client's best interest. That's super important.
So that's the most important piece, right? When you're hiring someone, this is why. Because at the end of the day, it's your money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to have someone who will definitely be in your interest.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, last question. What are some most common myths that you see about building wealth, about being rich?
I think one of the most common myths is, well, you have to make millions in order to have millions. But that's not how investing works. So if you get started early, and even if you start investing small amounts, you can become a millionaire over time. It's not going to be instant, right? You're not going to wake up a millionaire the next day after you start investing.
Right.
It's going to take years. So you just have to be patient and you have to have a consistent process, but you will get there.
That's good to know, right? Because many of us don't have millions to spend.
Yes.
Especially being immigrants, like we're building the foundation for our lives, for our families, so many of us.
Exactly. But if you're, you know, if you're at a point where you can pay the bills and you have some money left over at the end of that month, you know, pat yourself on the back. That's a good place to be because now you can start saving and investing.
Now, what are you hitting as far as like the whole judgment of someone who is rich, right? It seems like I get quite a bit of that too with my clients.
Yeah. Yes. There's some beliefs out there that are not serving us, such as, you know, rich people are evil. That's a big one, right? Like all rich people are just bad.
They must have done something really bad to get rich.
Exactly. And yes, I mean, for the oligarchs, that's true, right? But I think we have to recognize that there's a lot of rich people who have worked really hard and have created a business or have invented something And they have hired millions of people, that they have provided so many jobs. I mean, look at technology, right? It's improved our lives, I would say. Yes, there are some downsides, but we're able to work from home.
We're just focused on the negative again, right? And it's just like even looking at movies and the TV series, you know what I've been watching? I'm gonna tell you my guilty pleasure, which is, it's hilarious, really. I've been watching Dallas.
Oh.
You know that show, Dallas? You might not know it. It's a very old show. It's like, I think they started filming it in 1978. It kept on going for 20 years. But it's about this very rich family
Okay.
in Dallas, Texas. All oil, oil industry, rich oil industry. And you have two people running this huge company. You have a J.R. Ewing, who is evil, evil, malicious, terrible person, treats others awfully. You have another one, his brother, Bobby, who is more, he has morals and values and all of that, but he is not as successful ever as his brother. So that message there is so clear. And we're talking 20 years of a show with that one specific idea. And that show was so popular that the last episode, when they were airing the last episode, there were more people watching that episode than there were people voting that year.
You're kidding.
No, it was a big deal back in the day. And I, to be honest with you, I really enjoy seeing the fashion and just the rhythm of everything, how it unfolds. It doesn't give me anxiety. It's nice and calm. But one of the most important messages of it all is that unless you are vicious and mean, you will not be rich. And where it comes to male, female, males are the ones that make money and are treated seriously in any business. If there is a female that is becoming successful, she is being treated so terribly for having any sort of ambition. And the only way that she can become successful is if she's an investor behind a male.
Oh, no.
And nobody knows that she is the one behind it. But, and I was, one of the things in my school too that we talk about is that nothing wrong happens when women have money.
Exactly.
Right? When specifically females, when we have money, not many bad things happen. Like, first of all, we're not going to invest in wars and making money off wars. When females will not do that because of a simple fact that we give life, we value it more. Like that one piece in itself, right? Sex trafficking, child trafficking, right? Those kind of terribly evil things. Is a female going to take her hard-earned money and invest into something like this? Most likely not. And these are the evil things in the world. So yeah, so like, no, let's educate all the women out there. Right. We all need to make a lot of money. And you have such an important job, such an important mission. Absolutely.
But you're so right. I mean, there's so many of these beliefs that are floating around with all our movies, the TV shows. Heck, I'll give you an example. In my industry, I became a financial advisor. And so we're constantly having to do continuing education, right? And so they, all these different companies have continuing education, and they give us all these case studies, husband and wife, they make this much money, this is their benefits, where should they put their money to use? And I kid you not, but just last week, I had one of these courses online, and it's always the same. Husband and wife. Husband makes 3 times as much as wife. That's the case studies. And I don't think I noticed this 7 years ago when I had just entered the industry, but now I notice it because it's just again and again and again. And I put my hand up and I said, enough. I am tired of these case studies. Like, stop telling us that the wife has to make a third of the husband. That is not the case. Like, you're messaging, it's the wrong message.
Who is writing the case studies?
You tell me.
Not the ladies. Not the ladies.
Well, and unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if sometimes it is, because, if you grew up in that household,
yeah,
you kind of think that is the norm, right? And I think we should challenge the norm to say, hey, the wife deserves to make just as much, if not more.
Of course. I mean, and just the fact you're saying that the value of a stay-at-home mom is $180,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like, that is the value.
Right.
So how much money, if she was actually getting a paycheck, how much money would she actually make?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there's also the piece of us not making as much money because we're females, right? And just from the start getting paid less.
Right. Yes, there is that. And there is, the other reality that usually when women have kids, they either take a step back in their career or they just take time off. So then it's hard to re-enter the workforce and make, the same amount.
Right.
But
and
overall,
these are all stories though, right? Like, that's the one thing about all of it, is that if we agree, then it becomes a reality.
exactly.
And that's not necessarily has to be, but just becomes a reality, and there it is.
Yes, exactly. But we don't have to accept it. It doesn't have to be our reality.
No, it doesn't. And questioning all of it is so important, because at the end of the day, money is right at the very foundation of our lives and our safety. And how I always think about, like, when we have our groceries paid for, and when we know that the car payment will be taken care of, and all these basic bills are taken care of, and we have money saved up and we don't have to worry about it, that's when we can think about our mental health.
Yes.
Right. And emotional health. And that's when we can think about what is our relationship like with our husbands. That's when we can actually start focusing on those things that are like that next level, building you towards some sort of inner peace and happiness in life. So you don't have to worry about having 20 jobs just to get by.
Yes. So ultimately, I think that's the goal for all of us, is to get to that point where we're no longer worried about money. We're worried about the things that are truly important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, how can my people, how can immigrants find you if they would like to hire you to be their, financial planner?
Sure. So the easiest way to reach out is via my website. It's www.truewealthy.com.
True Wealth.
True Wealthy. So
Wealthy. True Wealthy. Okay.
True Wealthy without the E. So TRU.
Okay.
And I actually have my calendar right on my website. You can schedule time with me. It's free. Because I want to make sure that we're a good fit, since I work with my clients long term.
Got it. So someone would simply go to your website, and I will add the link to your website in the description of the show, right? So for all of you listening, you can just go right in there and it will be there for you. You don't have to type it in, just click on the link. And then the next step would be to find your calendar, schedule a consultation with you. And how long does a consultation take?
Usually it's about 30 minutes, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have and just get you started on your way to build wealth.
Yeah. So everybody, if you want to start considering managing your wealth more mindfully and actually on purpose and building wealth, Tess is your girl. That's the first step. Reach out to her and she will take care of you. Wonderful. It was so good talking to you. I have one more question for you in regards to you being an immigrant. Okay. The last question. Okay. What do you think was the biggest challenge for you when you came?
The biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge, especially being so young, is having the belief that you need to fit in order for people to like you. And I think a lot of immigrants feel that way, like, oh, I have to try to fit in. I tried working on my accent, reducing my accent. And now I look back and I think, I think the real goal should be to find your tribe, find people who accept you for who you are and stand in your uniqueness, because we're all unique. And that's what makes us special. So just own it.
Own who you are.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I gotta tell you, it does not, when you own who you are, it doesn't matter who is around you. Like, you will be comfortable with people who, are admiring your accent or not. You'll be comfortable with either way, because you will know that your accent is okay to have. No matter how someone reacts to you, it will be just like, you will know that this is on them, not on you. It means nothing about you, right? Like, so that is the piece that I help to figure out my people. When I work with immigrants, that is what we're building on, is the sense of, this is who I am, this is why I am this person. I've decided for myself what I will be thinking about myself, and it doesn't matter really at the end of the day what other people think about me.
Yeah.
But it's literally on them, right? There will be hundreds of people that you meet in a day, and everyone will have a different thought about you.
Yes. Exactly. It's on them.
Well, Tess, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I gotta tell you, I admire your where you have gotten yourself to in your life, right? Like, being obviously an immigrant, coming from the country you came from, and then in a way you stepped in Africa, and then you ended up in the North Dakota, you said, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Chicago, now you're in beautiful Florida. No, it's quite a path, right? Quite a path. So yeah, I'm really, really thankful that you were here, and you gave us your wisdom and your time, and you shared all of the thoughts on, obviously, investing and everything that has to do with that, but also your journey, and you shared your journey with us here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Likewise.